Hey there, positive managers. Welcome to the module that will really start freeing you up to work more in your genius zone. But first, let's take a moment to say, woot, 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 woot. You've made it to phase 4. You're in the home stretch. This is where you'll learn about taking your career to the next level. You may not actually partner up during this program, but you'll certainly understand how to do it and be on the lookout for the right opportunities. And I don't want you to confuse what I'm about to cover with the typical concept of delegation, which usually involves a manager just sliding work they don't want to do off their plates onto someone else's. My process goes so far beyond that type of delegation that in order to differentiate it, I coined and trademarked the term Manager Multiplier Effect, or MME for short. You may have heard of the multiplier effect when it comes to economics, when one person's spending becomes someone else's income, and some of the second person's income is subsequently spent. The multiplier effect has occurred. I've taken that concept and applied it to managing people. The result is a simple to follow process, and by the time you're through with this module, my goal is that you'll understand just how valuable my MME process is, and you'll never think of delegation in the same way again. In fact, rather than envisioning the practice of delegation, from this point forward, I'd like you to think instead of the concept of duplicating performance. I look at my MME process as the pot at the end of the rainbow for an organization. That's because organizations know how difficult it is to even find a highly skilled employee. Once found, the hiring process and organizational acclimation are both costly and time-consuming. By promoting a technically skilled employee to manager, much like your organization may have done with you, they're placing a bet on that decision, that if they give you more money and responsibility, you'll in turn be able to replicate your technical success into a team of high-performance individuals. In other words, they're banking on your ability to essentially clone yourself so that you can accomplish the goals of the organization through other people. For example, if you're a high-performing salesperson promoted to sales manager, your new job is not to grow sales. It's to grow salespeople, who will then grow more sales than you ever could have alone. But the biggest problem with that bet the organization made is that, like most customers in a casino, organizations lose more than they win. That's because effective performance duplication is difficult for managers to master, and it's a lot of work. So I'm going to take a minute to really drive home why you need to do this additional work. The payoff is huge for you, for your employees, for your organization, and for your customers. Performance duplication improves the organization's overall skill set. It aids in employee retention. It up-levels succession and strategic planning. And most importantly, it ignites employee engagement. When a manager is successful with performance duplication within their team, it elevates overall organizational performance in 3 ways. First, when managers of people succeed at knowledge transfer, in other words, when they successfully replicate their knowledge, skills, attitudes, and behavior into those who report to them, the organization gets an entire team performing at higher levels. Second, the organization now has a manager who has bandwidth to take on higher level strategic activities and make an even greater impact on organizational performance. Third, having managers capable of performance duplication makes economic sense. Let's crunch some numbers. Say you have a $250 an hour director who has 3 managers underneath her, each with their own talents and strengths, earning $100 per hour. If the director successfully partners with her managers to transfer some of the strategic work that's on her plate to her management team, instead of paying $250 an hour for her to do that work, the organization now pays $100 an hour, and the managers will in turn acquire higher level skills. The director will also free up bandwidth to stretch herself and focus on the organization's vision. Now, if that director's managers partner with their direct reports, who make $50 an hour, to do some of her managerial level work, it spreads that manager's skills and abilities down into the next level. So the organization is now paying $50 rather than $100 an hour for that managerial level work. But there's even more to it than saving the organization money. Additionally, those employees are now able to grow with their stretch assignments. The stretch assignment, regardless of the level of the employee stretching, is a team effort. Both the manager and the subordinate are working to ensure the new growth assignment is successfully completed. This process will also exponentially increase employee engagement. Do you see why I'm saying that this is not delegation as you've known it? But like I said, effective performance duplication is a lot of work, and managers who try it usually become discouraged because they run into problems. There are 5 fatal flaws that prevent proper performance duplication from happening. Misunderstanding your role, assuming it comes naturally, thinking you don't have time to do it, micromanaging, and not having a delegation plan. Let's drill down. When the manager misunderstands their role, they view their promotion as a reward for past performance instead of an effort by the organization to obtain performance duplication. Not only does the manager fail to understand the concept of performance duplication, they look at delegation as a reward to their employees. As a result, after transferring a project that they don't want to do off their own plate and onto their subordinates, they mistakenly believe their employees will single-handedly rise to the challenge on their own. And when that employee inevitably fails, this manager labels that failure as a performance problem of the employees. They have no idea that the failure is a team failure, let alone how to course correct. Beyond failing to realize that delegation done in this manner kills engagement, the manager has no understanding that the assignment should have been about transferring knowledge, skills, and abilities by partnering with their direct reports, helping them learn to effectively perform at a higher level, resulting in increased engagement. This is why mastering my MME process is so effective. The second fatal flaw is assuming it comes naturally. Newly promoted managers mistakenly believe that because they've been successful as an individual, they'll automatically be successful as a manager. And this manager is usually not alone in this assumption. Organizations are also guilty of this type of magical thinking, oftentimes promoting a great employee to manager and only providing them with the typical heavy on theory but light on how-to manager training. Even in the best cases, the transition from being a high-performing individual to a manager is rarely smooth. And learning to effectively achieve performance duplication can be yet another tough challenge. Most people struggle, especially at first, and many aren't comfortable going to their own boss and saying, "This is harder than I thought it would be, and I need some guidance." That's why I knew I could really make a difference if I could create an effective process that would make it possible to master the art of performance duplication if managers were willing to put the time to learn it and use it. The second common mistake, and again, we don't just see this in new managers, is micromanaging, which we discussed earlier in the program. But it so often occurs in delegation assignments that I'm mentioning again. If you'll recall, micromanaging is when the manager watches over her direct report like a hawk, scrutinizing every move they make. And it totally defeats the purpose of effective performance duplication. Micromanaging means direct reports never get to own the work. And for the manager, it means they're forever bogged down in the activities and details that keep them from focusing on their all-important strategic role in the organization. Even when overseeing a rank beginner, micromanaging is the wrong way to go. It is useful in a crisis, but as a sustained management style, it's horribly destructive. One of the strengths of using my MME process is that it helps combat a tendency to micromanage if used properly. Fatal flaw number 4 is telling yourself that you don't have enough time. I'm telling you that you not only have the time, doing this work will make more time. Yes, it may initially involve more work for both you and the employee, but this is a long-term solution. And the more you partner up with your direct reports, the more knowledge transfer occurs, and the more time you free up on your own bandwidth to do higher level work. This gives you the opportunity to turn to your supervisor and say, hey, I want to partner with you on higher level projects and grow my skill set. It has a domino effect throughout the organization. The final mistake new managers make when it comes to performance duplication is not going in with a thorough development plan. That fly by the seat of your pants, let the employees sink or swim approach rarely works in any context, and certainly not when it comes to performance duplication. To effectively achieve performance duplication, rather than your garden variety delegation, you need a plan of action, because without one, there's no way you can help your employees build their knowledge and skill base. And you'll never cultivate a high-performance work environment. By using my MME process, you'll not only create an effective action plan, the employee you're partnering with will be able to follow it and succeed. Let's talk about what effective use of my MME process looks like. Before we begin, let me remind you that authentic leaders invest time with their people. Poor managers spend time on their people. Effective use of my MME process will require an investment of your time. The good news is that if you do it right, it's a one-time investment for that task, and the dividends will pay off continually from that point forward. Make sure you check out your Manager Toolkit. I've provided you with my Manager Multiplier Effect checklist. By now, you know that my Positively Managing method is all about step-by-step processes, and effective use of my MME process can be broken down into 7 steps. Step 1 is select the person. As a leader, you must first decide who you will be partnering with. You have a couple of choices here. You can partner with someone you know will get the job done, someone who's already proficient at the task. This doesn't ensure success. They'll need clearly defined objectives and outcomes to measure their progress and results. You also have the option to truly help one of your employees grow. By delegating a task to someone who will have to be pushed well outside their comfort zone to succeed, you'll truly be attempting to achieve performance duplication within someone new. This is my preferred selection for you because it'll not only expand your team's skills and abilities, it'll increase their engagement. Once you've selected the employee, you'll next need to plan out the details of the project and partnering. What will be duplicated? The deadline for completion, budget, and resource requirements. You must also determine how results will be measured. The measurement must be black and white. Opinions cause disagreements. So you'll need facts, figures, and deadlines as your measuring tools, or you risk a failed delegation. In step 3, you'll meet with the person taking on the task. In the meeting, explain what the task is and why it's important to the organization. Explain the why and how of your decision to partner with this person. Next, explain the results to be achieved. Be very specific here. If you leave room to wriggle, it's likely that success will wriggle away. Explain the rules and limitations of the project. Again, being specific is key here. The person you're partnering with must know exactly what they can and can't do. Set the guidelines up and set them firm and make them consistent. Don't give the person or yourself any excuse to escape the project. Next, set the performance standards for that task. These are the measurements. There's no gray allowed here. The more black and white, the better. When the time comes to evaluate the success of the task, you don't want to debate. Knowing whether the outcome was met must be crystal clear to everyone involved. You're also going to tell the employee This is the deadline. We're going to talk on these dates, and we're going to agree to check in before there's a problem so there aren't any surprises. And most importantly, if you do have problems, come to me immediately because we're partners on this. Step 4 is asking for a plan of action. The person you're partnering with should develop their own plan of action. How will they accomplish the task? And that means you're not going to be telling them how they should accomplish the task. In fact, you're saying, hey, this is what I need, and this is what it looks like done. This is how I would do it, but if you can see a better way or a faster way, go for it. Just show me your plan before you start. There's no one way or right way to do it, and I'm here to support you, to make sure you have what you need to be successful. You're also going to see if their action plan stays within your guidelines, so send them off to create a plan. In step 5, you're going to carefully review the employee's action plan with them, but don't read it to them. Instead, have them go through it, with you asking only clarifying questions. If you take control, it puts the employee on the defensive. And remember, don't start any clarifying question with why. This is where the rubber meets the road. If you mess this up, the partnership and the performance duplication will fail. You must be certain that their plan will result in the task being completed on time and successfully. If their plan can't accomplish the required outcome, then you must coach the person to adjust their plan accordingly. Now, here's your challenge. Keep your micromanaging monster in its cave. Coach your employee to change their plan. Do not make this into your plan. Your employee must be able to keep ownership. Here's another big challenge for you. Their plan will most certainly be different than the plan you would have developed. Who cares? If their plan will meet the objectives, stay within the guidelines, and accomplish the task, then let them go with it. They'll learn and grow, and after it's done, you can debrief on any areas where they could have done it differently. But by letting them come to this discovery on their own, if you'll only let them. If you end up frustrated at the way they did it, and in your heart know that your way was the best way, then it's possible you're a tried and true micromanager. Step 6, implement the plan. Yeah, really, seriously, implement the plan. Most plans fail because they're never implemented. As important as the completion date is to the success of the plan, the start date is vital as well. Make certain you have agreement as to when the person will begin. Have them set a date. You can even have them set a start time on that date. Specificity is what makes delegation work. Never forget they're learning a new skill, so both of you are going to be pushing out the edges of your comfort zone. This will trigger all kinds of insecurities and old wounds. It will create a touchy situation where either or both of you may be sensitive to every little slight or misstep and have a hair trigger ready to throw in the towel mentality at any time. This is natural. It's predictable. So be ready for it and get the employee ready for it. That way, neither of you will be so caught off guard by it that you can't course correct. And be prepared to walk your employee through the concept of iterating your way to awesome. They may have to circle back several times and rework things several times because it's up-leveling their skill set, so they're in uncharted territory. Step 7, follow-up. On the date agreed to, meet one final time to assess the results. If you didn't mess anything up and you kept in touch on a regular basis, coaching and encouraging, then the result should be exactly what was expected. And that result will include the fact that you've just helped someone grow into a more productive team member. With this accomplishment, you've now demonstrated exceptional leadership skills and are a more valuable leader to your organization. And both you and your employee can now share a great success. If used effectively, my MME process will dramatically increase engagement because you're partnering with your employee on something he or she considers to be a growth opportunity, and you're making it clear you're going to ensure that they're successful. You're not just sliding the grunt work you don't want to do onto a subordinate's plate. That would have the opposite effect we want. It would kill engagement. Some managers of people drain all the intelligence, capability, inspiration, and creativity right out of their teams. It's usually because they're insecure, with a need to be the smartest, most capable person in the room. These managers of people end up shutting their team down and cutting off flow of ideas. And I know you know this type of manager because we've all worked with and for them. Remember that manager who day after day suggested new targets and tasks for your team, expecting you to scurry to keep up with their thinking rather than thinking for yourself and contributing your own ideas? And more than likely, if you dared to offer your own idea, they slapped it down in irritation. Or you know a manager in another department who, despite having more than 25 top-notch direct reports on his team, admits that he only listens to a couple of people because no one else really has anything to contribute. Instead of being a manager who successfully duplicates performance, these managers diminish the people who report to them. They cost their organization a lot of money, leaving creativity and talent on the table every day. And worse yet, cause that creativity and talent to walk out the door and join other organizations. Many managers are unknowingly keeping themselves from successfully achieving performance duplication. That's because a lot of managers were continually praised for their abilities and now assume they're always supposed to have the answer. Or they could have worked for a manager who was an expert at diminishing those around them, and they're now unknowingly mirroring that behavior. Or you could be the type of manager who has the perfect vision of the future and can successfully convey it to your team. If this is you, ask yourself whether you're leaving enough space for your employees to think through the challenges you all are facing. Or you could be super passionate about a project at issue and easily able to articulate the vision you have for it. But what if your passion is so powerful that instead of being infectious, it's actually stifling your team? You could be so excited about your vision that you're continually spouting your ideas, believing that this behavior sparks the creative process, when in reality you're causing people to shut down or scurry to think they have to change direction with each new idea. It's important to be able to step back and look at your own behavior with fresh eyes to make sure that you're successfully giving rather than taking away. None of us want to be that type of manager. But to successfully duplicate performance, you must care less about flaunting your own skills and abilities and more about fostering a culture of excellence and creativity. You must understand that when your direct report or team is struggling with a project or process, especially something critical or high stake, you need to ignore your tendency to step in. Even when you know the answer and can finish that report better or faster, because that's not the right message to send your team. Don't heavily invest in being the hero, or ever consider yourself to be the smartest person in the room. Instead, see yourself as a coach and mentor. Learn to derive enjoyment from enabling others to operate independently. Allow your direct reports to discover the results on their own, and then happily reward their success. Value self-sufficiency, and once you transfer a task or decision, don't you dare try to take it back. What can you do to become a better manager who successfully utilizes my MME process? Understand the key is, rather than providing answers, it's using your own knowledge, skills, and abilities to ask insightful and challenging questions that cause people to stop, think, and rethink. Instead of trying to sell your vision or to expect it all to be done the way you would do it, ask a series of questions that get your employees thinking and piecing together the vision for themselves. Trickle ideas don't use a fire hose, and I know I have to repeat this one to myself. If you're the type of person who's always tossing out ideas, passionate and excited, try to shut the fire hose down to a motivational dribble. Strategically dispense your ideas in small but intensive doses. Sharing fewer ideas with your employees gives them the space they need. It allows them the room to feel safe, to contribute their own ideas, and leads them to really listen when you do say something. Do be clear and hold people accountable. We now know that both children and adults do best when they're fully accountable and experience the consequences of failing to meet expectations. So instead of jumping in and fixing the problem, hand it back to them. Let them know what needs to be improved or completed and by when. Leave the how out. And don't allow people to just point out a problem. Expect them to offer a solution. Try and ask questions that will help them wrestle with it, but allow them to work their way toward the solution. This will help you grow their capability and independence. To be successful at using my MME process, you need to become skilled in these areas. Knowing yourself, you need to understand your own personality and what motivates you. You need to also understand your natural behavioral style and how that style can successfully translate into a positive and motivational management style. You also need to understand what you can partner on with your subordinate and carefully plan how to successfully transfer your knowledge and skill. For example, if you're a very assertive and driving person, someone who's results-oriented, you may find it relatively easy to transfer the work but not the decision-making. This can be an engagement killer, as I've said. Or you may be a very process-oriented and diligent person with details and thus may be uncomfortable handing off the key details to your direct report. But again, this failure is an engagement killer. So whatever managerial style you possess, you need to know what comes naturally to you, both the positive and negative. You also need to understand that knowing yourself is only half the equation. It's equally as important to understand each of your direct reports' personalities and needs. Though we talked about some of this in an earlier module, it bears repeating now. There may be cases where, with the direct report who has a style like yours, you'll find it very easy to use my MME process. But if the direct report has a style different from yours, you may find it difficult to adjust your style to match theirs. Of course, this is an issue even when we're not talking about using my MME process, because as I've said, it's your responsibility, not your employees, to adapt your style to theirs in order to accomplish successful use of my MME process. And you can't fail in the follow-up. After delegating a project or task, the key to success is checking in on a regular and expected basis to make sure things are on track. But again, and I can't stress this enough, this is not micromanaging. You're not checking in to make sure that the person is doing the task just like you would do it. You're checking in because the MME isn't about abdication of your responsibilities to ensure the employee succeeds. You don't give them the task, cross your fingers and hope for the best. You need to touch base to make sure they don't have any questions, make sure they're on track, and offer support and motivation. The bottom line is that you're looking to use my MME process in a way that will work well for both you and your direct report. The key is understanding that the goal is to meet mutual expectations, set goals and negotiate it together. It's making sure that you communicate clearly what you need to be accomplished and when you need it accomplished. The responsibility for being clear is yours. And that leads us to reason number 2, the lack of trust. There needs to be an environment of trust throughout the team and, more importantly, with you, their leader. The resistance comes from not trusting that they're actually being empowered to make decisions when the time comes. They may also fear that they'll be second-guessed or overruled after they finish the work. They need to know that they can come to you for coaching when they have questions, but that you won't micromanage the work by changing elements from their style to yours. Or worse yet, take the project back at the first sign of a problem. This is very demoralizing. Reason number 3 is their perception of a poor manager-employee relationship. Even if it's not true from your end, if your employee doesn't believe you're approachable and supportive, the delegation will be stifled. Do you focus on mistakes more than you praise your employee's work? In these cases, you won't be able to effectively coach the employee, and more than likely they'll fail to complete the project as set forth. So this one requires you to take a deep breath and look critically in the mirror. Reason number 4 is the lack of a positive incentive. All too often, managers believe employee incentive means money. Employees need incentives to be engaged and high performers. Ask them how they'd like to receive appreciation. When they don't trust that they'll be positively rewarded for taking on more work, even if it's successful, I promise you, they'll be looking for a way to turn it down. The final reason employees resist growth opportunities is lack of information. The employee must trust that they'll get the information they need to complete the work. When you present the idea, one of the first things out of your mouth needs to be assurance that you'll be partnering with them, ensuring they have everything they need, and that you are invested in their success. Successfully used, my Manager Multiplier Effect is liberating. By providing your direct reports with important, constructive work, you light their engagement fire. You also free yourself up to accomplish even bigger things. And if you really can't delegate a task to anyone on your team, for whatever reason, at least be a mentor and take them on the ride along with you, so that the next time an opportunity comes along, they'll be able to do more on their own. When you can shift your mindset to using my MME process on a regular basis, you'll start to feel what it's like to have collective achievement. And you'll be on the road to developing into a high-performing manager and leader, not just a high-performing individual. The key is understanding that my Manager Multiplier Effect process means passing down those challenging things you can, but don't have to do, so that you can focus on doing the highest level things that only you should be doing. I know this is a big chunk of material. I also know that it will take time to master this process, but I urge you to start immediately because it will open up all kinds of possibilities for both you and your direct reports. It may take months or even years to become an expert and feeling that it comes naturally. But please, please, please stick with it. It's so worth it. In the meantime, get ready for next week when we look at your next steps and examine fish out of water and what to do about your unsuccessful employees. There won't be as many as before once you're in the groove of positively managing performance. I can assure you of that.